In this video, we're going to talk about being an artist. Are you an artist? Are you just starting out? Have you had some experience? Whichever you are, I think you might find this video interesting. Hi, I'm Joy Fay, and I'm an artist and a teacher. And I've been teaching for many, many years. And, you know, art is my passion and my life. And I absolutely love it. I love painting and I love teaching. And along the road, I found it very interesting to discover how people feel about their art and whether they actually feel that they're an artist. Does that apply to you? You know, some people are just kind of open and free about it, but the majority aren't, in my experience. There's something there that we tend to feel fearful of, or embarrassed of, or nervous of. Maybe you can identify with that. You know, we want to express ourselves, but we can find ourselves with so many blocks and stopping ourselves from expressing what we feel. And it's a very interesting point when it comes to being creative and to being an artist. How do we set ourselves free from those problems of overcoming judgment, not just of ourselves, but of other people, you know, what people say about our art. It's quite interesting, but it's very deep because it affects us creatively. It really does. So I've been kind of pondering on this question for quite some time, and I was inspired by listening to an artist talk about this on YouTube. I can't remember their name at the moment, but I'll put the link in the information below because it was a really interesting podcast about creativity. And one of the things that kind of came into my mind was, how do we get over this fear, not only in ourselves, but also to the outside world for what people say about our work? You know, particularly if you're into abstract painting, which I am. I mean, I love all kinds of painting, but I love doing abstract. And, you know, on many occasions, people will be quite derogatory about it. You know, well, anyone can do that. A child can do that. You know, you've heard it before. And, you know, they miss the point. So wipe on, wipe off is the best solution to that. However, that can stay with us inside. And indeed, it's probably been inside of us for a very long time. When people, you know, come to me for teaching and they're just beginning abstract painting, they're very nervous of just kind of letting go and reconnecting with that creativity. And 9 times out of 10, it's been blocked from an early age. You know, from being a child, when someone has said, oh, that's stupid, or you're not good enough, or it doesn't look like anything, all that kind of stuff, which is very, you know, it's very hurtful, particularly to a child, and that can kind of grow in us to being an adult. So when I'm teaching, I'm really trying to help people, you know, find that creativity inside them by doing different kind of interesting, fun, playful exercises. But it's also, art is also a mindset, how we're thinking about what we're doing with our art. What is it that we love? What is it that we want to express? You know, how do we go about doing that? And we have our creative side, which I say is on our right-hand side of our brain, and we have our skillful side, our analytical side, which is on the left side of the brain. What can tend to happen is that the left side can sort of try and overthrow the creativity and inhibit it because of those ingrained fears and trepidation of, you know, not wanting to be stupid, not wanting to look as if we don't know what we're doing, not being good enough, all that stuff that goes in that rubbish bin as far as I'm concerned. And some interesting ways to overcome that. And this is what this podcast inspired me to say and have the idea that if you weren't yourself, if you gave yourself a new identity and painted under another person's name, how would you paint differently? Now, it's kind of a very interesting question. If I'm just painting as Joy and, people know what I'm painting, they have certain expectation about what it would be and how I work. However, if I had another name and I painted under that name, random, could be anything, Jane Doe for the point of the exercise, and painted something really crazy, I could let go. I wouldn't have to be identified with Joy Fay. Do you get what I mean? And it's interesting because if you look at sort of various authors, Agatha Christie, who's so famous, she had various other pen names that she wrote under in order to do different stories. She didn't want the Agatha Christie name to be linked with the other stories that she wrote. So she gave herself another name. Now, that's kind of like a really interesting concept when it comes to painting, because just for the sake of the exercise, if you were to just assume another name, think of a really wonderful artist's name that you would like to be. It might take a little bit of time, but just feel about that. Think, I want to be da-di-da. Then paint under that name. So it's actually got nothing to do with you. It doesn't have anything to do with your fears and trepidations and apprehension. It would be much freer. And I think it would be a very, very valuable exercise to try that and see how you feel. I've written some notes here about it. So if I look down, I'm looking at those notes. Because you haven't got the restrictions that you have under the identification that you have with you, of what you think you should, must and ought be, or what you think you should, must and ought paint, right? If you assumed a new identity, you can then express yourself in a very different way. And it would be a fascinating experiment to try both. And I'm going to do another video on trying both after I've done this one, because I feel that it would really release that creativity in a whole different way. And you would learn, and I would learn, something very different about ourselves. I think you might agree with that. I hope so. Say, for example, if you looked at Picasso went through so many different stages of his art. He started off as a very classical, skillful painter, artist, taught very much by his father. And then when he left Malaga, and I actually live in Malaga, which I always love because Picasso was born here. But anyway, that's beside the point. When he left Malaga and he went to Paris, he started exploring all different ways of painting, and he, mixed with a lot of the contemporary artists of the time. And he went through various different stages of Cubism and in his blue period, and he reinvented himself such that he could explore his possibility creatively. And it wasn't for a while that he just became Picasso. Before that, he was Pablo Picasso. And he kind of allowed himself to explore that part of himself creatively. So in a way, I'm saying to you the same thing, that let's allow ourselves to explore ourselves creatively by not being boxed in by our identification with what we think we should, must and ought be, and all those inhibitors that go with it. If we would just allow ourselves to be free to paint, to express, to discover what might happen to our painting, I think it would be a really interesting experiment. And it would maybe give ourselves time to look at what we really think about ourselves and what we really think about art, what we really love about it, what we feel passionate about it, how we are motivated to be creative. And I think that's something absolutely fantastically magical, to be motivated to be creative. You know, it's creativity that moves the world forward. Without that creativity and innovation to explore new territory, you know, we'd all be at a standstill. It's creatives that move our thinking, that move our feeling, that move our behavior, that move the way we approach life. You know, in that podcast, the guy was talking about what life was like before Facebook, which is kind of an interesting thought. I think Facebook was started in about 2006, 2007. And, you know, there was quite a lot of apprehension about it to begin with. But look through that creative process of putting Facebook together, the difference that it's made to the world. I mean, massively. It's kind of been a complete life changer for everybody, you know, who's involved in it. Okay, now there are a lot of people that are coming off Facebook because they don't like all the stuff that goes on with it. But, you know, to begin with, you know, it was quite a new, amazing, innovative thing to share with friends, find friends that we haven't been in touch with for a long time. You know, that for those of you who remember, maybe you don't, but I do. The whole point of Facebook was a whole new world from an idea, from somebody being creative. Now, when we think about our own individuality and our own expression, and that we are all totally different, you know, okay, we have similarities, but from a personal, spiritual, personal point of view, we are all completely different. And therefore, we have all got something completely different to offer in our creativity. And it's very easy to tend to fall into not copying as such, but trying to explore things that we've already seen and make it our own, rather than somebody else seeing what we've done to make it their own. How can we be totally authentic and creative with our work? Doing something that nobody else has done before, without copying, without being influenced. And, you know, I do know one of my very dear friends who's a fabulous artist, and she's getting on now, but she's amazing. I think she's in her 80s. And when I talked to her about, you know, all the amazing work that's going on YouTube and Instagram and Pinterest, she said, I'm not interested. I don't want to be influenced by other people. I want to stay true to myself. Now, that's a very brave move. And she's a very well-established artist, and she has her very particular style. So I can understand that. But can you imagine you not going on YouTube, not looking at Instagram, not looking at Pinterest for ideas, and just coming totally authentically from your own depth of your heart and your spirituality and your being? It's kind of interesting thought, don't you think? I mean, it's very brave. We'd have to be quite courageous to do that. And then there is another word that is very pronounced. We have to be courageous. We have to have the courage to explore. Using a different identity, so we're not going to get mocked for doing something that is crazy or different. It might just bring something together inside us, because once we can develop that under another pseudonym, under another name, then we can bring that into our own sphere. But I think it's a really interesting experiment to try. I think it gives us a real insight into being a real artist. The mind of an artist who is pure creativity. However, I'm going to add something more to that. I feel that it's really important to actually, under our own name, develop skills, know what to do and how to do it with our paint, with our brushes, with our different tools. What if working in acrylics, what acrylics can do, the different mediums if you're working in oil or watercolour. We want to have a stable full of skills, because then that gives us the confidence to explore. So developing the skills, I feel, is really important. That's not to say that we don't do the creative stuff as well, but I feel that you need to be mindful of knowing how your tools work, knowing what your paints will do, knowing what happens if you do this, this, this and this. You know, same with watercolour, same with oil, pastel, whatever, your medium. But having got that as a foundation, you're then in a much better place to be able to express yourself, really to fit how you're feeling and to fit yourself to be able to express yourself. I think that's kind of fundamental. So I think those two things can run alongside each other, the creative side, the skillful side. Giving yourself a new pseudonym, a new name to explore without all the barriers and the fears and the doubt, to be able to just kind of let go, play and enjoy. Developing the skills and then putting those two things together as yourself. I mean, obviously your pseudonym is still yourself. It's just a different mindset. It's a different way of thinking about your art and your process, which gives you the space to explore without all those blocks and inhibitors. So I think you might find that interesting. I know I've gone on for a long time, but I do feel that giving this some thought could really expand your love and enjoyment and passion and your art, your painting, how you feel about it and what you produce and how great that feeling is and the results that you'll get. Because, you know, there's nothing like a painting coming together. It doesn't happen all the time. We all know that. Sometimes there can be, I don't think about disasters, but sometimes they don't work like we want them to do and we can paint them out and start again. But it's just wonderful when it comes together, when you know that you're in sync with your creativity and what's happening on the paper or the canvas or whatever. I'd love to hear what your thoughts are about this, if this has been in any way helpful or provoked you to think about your painting differently. I do hope so. It's an interesting discussion and I will continue it, and I'm going to do a video on experimenting with those two principles of painting as me and painting as a pseudonym, and I'm going to come up with a name. So tell me what you feel about this thought. Do you feel that it could open up something new inside you, open up another door to discover something about yourself. I'd be really interested to hear. And if you like this video, do like it. And if you want more of the same, then subscribe. And I look forward to seeing you again soon. Bye for now.